living in the South. I'm in the state of Louisiana. We have a new governor here. And just oppression coming out of our state legislature every day, that we're fighting all day, every day. And it's exhausting. So how do we really care for ourselves? And what are we creating? Rather than always fighting against what they're putting at us, like what is our agenda for the world we want to create, and how are we creating those communities and those communities of care, those communities of love? I hear people talk about self-care a lot, and it's nice to go get a massage or a pedicure or make a retreat. All about retreats. But it's like, if everyone can't have that, like, I don't want it. If my whole community that I'm with can't have that, I don't care which, philanthropy wants to go fund some social justice leaders to do stuff, like I want to bring all my people with me. And so I think about, what does community care look like? And how do we create that for everyone? And what are we putting our energy into? And how are we really creating this other world, rather than constantly fighting all that comes at us all the time? That's very defeating.
Yeah. Kamilah, I want to invite you in here because I've seen you nodding and smiling. And what's happening as you listen to Alison? Do you have any reflections?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think about anti-Black racism in particular, and part of it has a lot of representations. And one of the representations is the erasure of the leadership of Black people around making the country actualize its ideals, like from the very beginning, right? Just like 100%. It has been so much of what is actualized about the so-called American experience is actualized through the leadership of African-American protest. So in my book, in Joyfully Just, I talk about Black protest as a wisdom tradition that is, as we can see, emulated the world over, right? And, I think that one of the challenges that we see in, social justice movements is that, people kind of co-opt, Black wisdom traditions, whether it's the contemplative practices of singing through protest, or the dancing through protest, or the prayer through protest, without backing the leadership of Black people, right? So that, for example, you'll listen to, someone who is not Black speak about Black practices for far longer than you actually listen to someone who's Black and leading those practices talk about them. And it's just so subtle, like we don't realize we're doing it. My colleague, Dr. Jennifer Eberhardt at Stanford, did this research using eye tracking devices to have people look at anti-Black racism. So, for example, she put the eye tracking devices on teachers and said, look for the troublemakers. And all of the teachers, including the Black teachers, looked at the Black children. She did the same thing with the police. And of course, the police, looked at the Black people, and the darker the Black, So I feel like there's this really pervasive, what compromises, when I think about what compromises community, it's a lot of the times the ways that Black people are, kind of Black people, Black approaches to justice are co-opted without real collaboration and consideration. In fact, without backing the leadership of Black people, right? So a lot of times white allies or, just non-Black allies will be like, how do I support? And I'm like, from the back. Take advantage of the opportunity to be in what I call reparative relationality, right? In the book, I talk about, people think about reparations as something that has to be legislated. Reparations can exist in the way that we relate to each other. You can say, someone can say, I've spoken enough now. Can we hear from our Black colleague? Can we put the Black youth at the center? Can we can we surrender some of the power? Because what you see, there's this, another book called Elite Capture, where this Black professor wrote about how, the elites and predominantly people who are not Black have kind of captured it and are articulating and sometimes misarticulating because we're not centering the most marginalized voices. And I'm not saying that in any way from a power positionality. It's just like, if you want to shift it, you got to shift who's talking. You got to shift who's at the front. And from there, I really appreciated what Alison was saying about, courage. And in my book, I talk about fierce compassion, that yes, there is giving ourselves the compassion of a massage, but a colonoscopy is also a compassionate thing to do for yourself. And it's highly uncomfortable. So we need to divorce the idea of compassion from comfort. Comfort and compassion are not the same thing. Sometimes the most compassionate thing to do for ourselves, for one another, is the least comfortable. So if I say that's sexist, that is an act of compassion towards the person that I'm trying to correct. And if they have what I call discomfort resilience, the capacity to tolerate their discomfort, then they can receive it with gratitude and make the shift, right? So that when we do call each other in, as you're saying, it's not like, oh God, my feelings are hurt, but rather like, thank you. You're trying to connect, and you're trying to connect the real way, not the BS way, but by being 100% authentic. That's how we create change. We help break each other's biases.
That's
and
right.
Easy. It's not fun when it's happening to you.
Well, it's so true, because I think everything you've just shared, giving other people mic space or listening to Black folks and people of other marginalized identities, in order to even take that step or even have that thought that I need to listen, one has to really break one's own biases. One has to watch one's eye movements when someone's saying, hey, you have a classroom full of students, look for the troublemaker. It's like, oh, my eye went there, and no shame in the game if it does. But then can you be like, oh, this is what I've learned, right? The way I define bias is learned habits that distort how we perceive, reason, remember, and make decisions. So these are the learned habits that we need to unlearn, because it's breaking our world apart. And it's also breaking our own mental health apart, because we're constantly in fear of one another. And what you shared